Welcome to the People's Choice Award podcast, brought to you in partnership with Tier 1 People and Fintech Australia. The Finnies, Australia's largest and most prestigious fintech awards, are fast approaching, and we want you to be part of it. Sponsored by the Victorian Government and major partners Vocus and SwiftX, the Finnies are a chance to celebrate the amazing people, incredible innovations, and remarkable resilience that the fintech industry is known for and built upon. Thank you to MasterCard for sponsoring and presenting the award for Emerging Fintech Organisation of the Year at this year's Finnies. We look forward to seeing everyone on the 9th of June in Melbourne, and don't forget to make your vote in the People's Choice Awards. Today I'm joined by Ivan Chirilov. He's CEO and co-founder of OpenMarkets Group, and they're up for Emerging Fintech of the Year award. Congrats, Ivan, and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dexter. Thanks for having me on.
We've never spoken before, so you're going to have to not just share with the listeners, but share with me a little bit about OpenMarkets Group and what you do.
Yeah, well, it's, you haven't noticed me, so haven't invited me until now, so that's good.
If it's any consolation, I've had a few of your employees get in touch saying I should get you on the show. So,
good. That's good. I've got some providers in the business. That's good. Well, we'll be talking a little bit about culture, I'm sure. So that's good. But look, OpenMarkets Group we're a trading wealth management infrastructure fintech. So we provide the infrastructure, the market connectivity to a lot of the fintechs out there. So, self-wealth superheroes of the world, which I think I've spoken to some of, the robo-advisors, like the stock sponsor raisers of the world, and then also direct market connectivity and access to financial planners and et cetera. So essentially, we are the pipes and plumbing, the infrastructure in the background, doing all the sort of heavy lifting to make these fintechs innovate better platforms.
Fantastic. So,
it's a really easy business to explain, as you can imagine.
Well, yeah, I think the context that you've given there, most of the people you've mentioned have been on the show, right? So our listeners will know and probably are users of some of the apps themselves. So how did the origins of OpenMarkets Group come about, Ivan?
Yeah, so I used to run a fintech called TradeFloor, which Brock and myself, who's my co-founder, started at the end of 2014. At the end of 2019, we came together with OpenMarkets, which was sort of one of those first trading as a service brokers, if you will. So end of 2019, we formed OpenMarkets Group. TradeFloor needed to grow outside of just sort of options, which we were living in, and building sort of risk management systems and options trading games and that kind of stuff. And OpenMarkets needed more technology ultimately. And so it was basically, especially in hindsight, sort of a marriage made in heaven. And so we came together and it's been a heck of a sort of 18 months or so, 19 months since we've joined. But yeah, that's sort of the quick 2 seconds of how we came together.
What gave you the foresight then to kind of provide the pipes and the plumbing behind some of these businesses who are, in themselves, I think, really exciting fintech organizations?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's, you don't really wake up in the middle of the night going, you know what I really want to do? I want to run a clearing trading business and run the pipes and plumbing. But one thing that we did want to do, and it took us sort of 2-3 years to get to where we got to with OpenMarkets through a whole heap of kind of failed events with different sort of clearing providers. But what we did see is that technology is not really at the forefront of a lot of these traditional financial services companies, and we saw that there's a definite opportunity in really making things more efficient, automating a lot of technology, We've had a lot of know-how and expertise on the trading side. And then you sort of go into the broader world, and and after we did come together, we went, okay, so there's OpenMarkets already had a couple of these fintech clients, was very much ahead of the curve around offering API services. I think they started in 2016 doing that part, and it already had kind of Self-Wealth and Raise on the platform.
Yeah.
And so, and then you look broader and you go, like, almost 90% of the people in Australia don't have access to advice, right? And so then you go, okay, well, there's got to be an opportunity here to go in and bring the whole thing together, to build an ecosystem around all of the different parts of the business, join them up, and and ultimately become like a B2C to B business on some level, pairing that sort of 89% of the people that don't have access to a financial advisor with either scaled advice through technology or ultimately through an advisor.
Were there any kind of models that you could see in other industries that had given you some inspiration for this model?
I think on some level the Charles Schwab story in US has been one that's been interesting. I think that I remember reading this. My background is I used to be a trader, so I still kind of wake up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning sometimes, check CNBC or Zero Hedge, depending on how bullish or bearish I'm feeling in the day. But I remember when they went out and came out with zero brokerage, everyone went, hey, what are they doing? They're an online business, and they've just decided to bring out zero brokerage. Like, how does that work? And I think the subsequent release was that only 3% or so of their revenue was actually associated with brokerage, and they expanded to all of these other areas, whether that be providing more financial product through the pipes, or whether that be ultimately having sort of those people that they're not licensing, but essentially what we call the IFAs, the independent financial advisors. And so I think they've done a really good model there. I think that we're Australia is obviously quite different. Our market mechanics are quite different, but I think that there's a little bit in there that sort of inspired us.
We've not seen a great deal of disruption in the superannuation space, but it's a huge market, and the wealth market itself here in Australia is huge as well. Other than yourselves, like, what do you think needs to happen for customers and consumers to see more innovation in this space, Ivan?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, obviously, I think the answer is us. But look, it's like financial services is equally so easy and so hard. And, for anyone who's tried to innovate in the financial services space, I think they know exactly what I mean. But I think that for where we're trying, or what we're trying to do is really growing on that, on that pipes and plumbing component, so that fintechs can go and innovate and come up with their solutions in their niches to go on and solve a particular problem. So you mentioned super, and obviously we're super excited about Superhero launching a super product. That's almost like a pre-written line, which I swear I have not written, but just with how much I've used the word super. But I think they've got a really cool product that potentially will look to start disrupting some of that space. There's a lot of other areas within financial services as well, even in the scaled advice space, where essentially, I think that it's almost impossible for a fintech to come in and innovate across the entire end-to-end stream. So you need providers like us to make it affordable, to make it accessible, to reduce the friction, do all that sort of hard stuff, whether that be KYCing a client or providing pipes and plumbing to the exchange or whatever it happens to be. And then for fintechs to come in and really just access that, piggyback off that, and then just build their solutions. And I think that's sort of the way that we see the world. And I think the next 5 years or so are going to be quite interesting. I think we're going to see that model replicate across not only in Australia but in other areas.
Yeah.
And hopefully in Australia that super kind of world will get a little bit disrupted as well, because it's quite a tight space.
Yeah, it is. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about the last 12 months, because that's essentially, how the awards are being assessed is it over the last 12-month period. If we go back 14 months, I mean, the markets would have tanked about 30%. And I think we were all kind of expecting that there was going to be economic Armageddon. It's kind of not transpired that way, but how was it for you at that period where you've recently just gone and partnered or launched the OpenMarkets group, and the markets are tanking? Can you take us back to kind of how you were thinking and feeling at that time, and then the journey that you've been on since then?
Yeah, it was an interesting time. So we come into this office into the OpenMarkets office in the middle of December or early December or whatever it was. And then, of course, we're also, our head office is in Victoria, although for the next 2 weeks or so. And so obviously we had these super strict lockdowns. So we just started. We go, okay, there's a lot of work here to do on the culture side in particular. And, you're in for 3 months, markets tank, which is actually, ironically that kind of gives generally a boost to the brokers out there. Yeah. Although we didn't see a lot of that spike that month, we actually saw it as more people rushed towards digital solutions. Like the Self-Wealths of the world. I think Self-Wealth started picking up a whole heap of clients after that. Yeah. New traders coming in because everyone's sitting in lockdown, and we started growing. So we in April we acquired this business called C-Cube.
Yeah, remember that.
So coming into March, we sort of went from 28 to 17 people, as you typically get out of two businesses coming together. There's sort of efficiencies and a change of direction. So people either leave or get us to leave. And then over the next 12 months, or just over 12 months, we actually just ticked over from 17 to 114 people.
Wow.
And that essentially, that whole thing is you go from having one office with a satellite office in Brisbane, essentially, to having over 100 different offices, right? Because everyone's sitting at home, kind of on Teams and Zoom and WebEx, depending on what person sets up. And it definitely was quite interesting. But we had a couple of interesting ideas. We sort of have Friday night quizzes, and everyone comes with a drink. We tried to replicate that environment of an office as much as possible, and we ended up, in terms of you look back on the last 12 months and you go, like we've had tremendous growth in the business and et cetera, and that's awesome. But the thing that my COO, Dina, and myself are most proud of is going and saying, well, we took a culture which, the analogy that I always make is if you had a choice between going to a morgue and the OpenMarkets office in December 2019, you're basically having like a rave party at a morgue. Like that was what it was like. It was terrible culture at that point in time. And now we've become.
That's quite honest of you to say that.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty honest when it comes to these things. It was. I remember us coming into that office at that point in time, and we're like, and like any kind of, even if there was a kind of a difficult culture at that point in time before that, coming into a merger, you've got a new CEO coming in, like that kind of stuff is always not easy for staff. Yeah. And that transition, creating kind of a new vision, people go look at me, go, okay, that guy's 12 and he's running us. Like, that's really weird and scary. And so, and now we've got this culture where, obviously, if some of our guys are reaching out to you going, say, yeah, we need to talk, that's probably sort of a tick of approval. But also we get a lot of referrals inside the business for people to work with us and et cetera. So it's definitely not been easy, but we've come out at the end of that with an awesome culture, a really tight-knit group, and we're kind of not fazed by the boundaries of having people in Brisbane, Melbourne, and Sydney. So yeah, it's been pretty good.
So in terms of kind of customers and revenue, what kind of growth have you seen?
Yeah, so we've tripled our trading volumes. We've doubled our revenue over this period, and we've got some really good things in the pipeline to really exceed it. We've taken really at the end of 2019 when we came together, it was a pretty small fintech with 5 people, a heavily loss-making financial services business that we've restructured, reformulated. We took it since March 2020 up until sort of end of last year. We had record month after record month, increased profitability. We started investing a lot more into staff. We've ticked over back to sort of the red side of the ledger now as we're gearing up for the next phase of growth, and so we've had a really awesome 12 months. We've got another, I think, awesome 12 months ahead of us with some of the new things that we've been working on over the last over that 6-12 month period and investing in. So it's definitely been a bit of a roller coaster on some levels, but pleasingly, February was our latest record month, and we haven't been too far away in the last couple of months. So it's an awesome story, I think, for anyone who's coming into the business, for anyone who's been watching the story unfold, and all of my friends who said, "Mate, you should not do anything with OpenMarkets at the end of 2019." So it's good to sort of prove them wrong on some level.
Fantastic, awesome. How have you managed to kind of? You talked about the culture, Ivan, but how have you managed to retain that DNA? I mean, going from 5 to 114 or whatever it is. That's a lot of different kind of culture evolutions and even business changes. I could imagine your business has probably been three different businesses in the last 12 and a half months.
Yeah, so I think I think probably the trickier part has actually been bringing on 2 other businesses post our merger, because you ultimately have sort of 4 different culture sets coming in. I think that the thing that really set us apart, or at least this is what our guys are telling us, and the reason they really like our culture is I'm extremely transparent with staff.
Yeah.
And that's fed through the entire exco. So, most of our staff, if they're attending the sort of, we have these town halls and et cetera, we're completely open about where our financial position is, what are we, what are kind of the big challenges that we're facing, and et cetera. And the fact that, sort of your kind of what would typically be seen in a hierarchical structure, which at some level you have to have with so many people, but it doesn't matter who you are and what part of the business, our door is literally always open. So people, regardless of if they're sort of an intern coming in from uni or if they're more senior, we don't always have the time to go on and have our conversation with anybody, but everybody's voice is heard, and we're trying to make sure that we keep that going as we go. And then going down one level in terms of how we're ultimately structuring the business is, we do want to have like sort of a collection of mini startups effectively within a broader startup, so that, where the culture that we're trying to set is that, people are empowered to make decisions, that they're, that even if I, for example, might not agree with the decision that someone makes, doesn't mean that that's right or the wrong decision. So trying to have that open dialogue, which is obviously a lot harder than it seems, because I've got a pretty clear vision for where we're going and what we need to be doing. But having said that, how we actually get to that, there's a lot of empowering across those individual units.
When I've looked at companies that have grown, Ivan, over this last 5-6 years, one of the, everybody says that, hey, it started to get really difficult when we got to kind of 40, 50 people, because then you weren't all huddled together in one room and you just kind of overheard. And when you're transparent, you're just having conversations where everybody can hear, right? And so through osmosis, the kind of transparency help everybody feel, hey, well, I'm included in this. if not everybody's on the Zoom call, and you're only doing a Zoom call every couple of days or so, you just miss out on that. That kind of feeling of people being involved. So I think it's a real challenge, right, for every single leader that I'm talking to out there, of how do you kind of keep that energy, and that culture, and that, just feel that kind of sense of belonging as well.
Yeah. And that's, like our people culture guys, and we've just sort of added some people in that as well, have done a phenomenal job in terms of maintaining that, checking in with everyone, seeing how they are. Like they're very, by their nature, very caring and empathetic people. And then in terms of the actual on the work front, we've added people from awesome places like sort of ANZ Ventures and ANZX, I should say. That their whole job is really to drive that collaboration coming across teams and people. And I totally agree that has been a massive challenge. And, we're just about to move in Sydney, and we've just been looking for office space in Sydney and Melbourne, and the spaces that we're looking at, like the actual physical workspaces have now changed, right? Like there is a lot more hot desking, a lot more collaborations, breakout spaces, and all that kind of stuff. So I think that, the workspace has shifted probably forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this is People's Choice Award, and, the listeners and I guess, the customers and the fintech community gets to vote for their favorite fintech this year. So why should people vote for OpenMarkets?
I think that as we sort of said at the start of the call, there's a couple of my clients that have been on the show. They wouldn't be here without us.
Hey, I think one of them's a finalist against you, right? So
that's look, I think there's a couple of our clients that have actually made it, which is awesome. I think I'm coming up on a couple of different streams with some of them. Which, look, honestly, it's the thing that I think is very pleasing is that we're all clearly kind of in a very tightly knit space, and honestly, if some of the other guys were to win, I'd be super stoked for them, and I think vice versa. So we've all had a crazy 18 months, obviously, and I think that, ironically, we were sort of thinking about this, putting in an application into the Finnies last year. And I remember we kind of looked at it when, it's just like, there's nothing really that amazing to talk about. I think in the last year, obviously, we just came together at that point in time, but now we've actually got quite an interesting and compelling story.
Yeah.
The guys that have known OpenMarkets from the past said this is the best turnaround story they've potentially ever seen in the markets. In terms of why people should vote for us or someone else, honestly, it's not for me to make that call, but I think that we've all had quite an impressive year, and hopefully next year is just as prominent. So hopefully, if I do win this year, we'll have a crack at it next year.
And when you look back at this last 12 months, what would you say you're kind of most proud of that the teams achieved together, Ivan?
Yeah, I think the most obvious answer would have been, that we sort of went from where we were to sort of, pretty close to an IPO. But I think that the real thing that I'm most proud of, without any doubt, is that culture turnaround. Not only have we actually got that collaboration, which sounds really counterintuitive based on what we were just talking about, but we've actually got teams working together, people bouncing ideas of each other, even though that it's all been mostly over Zoom and et cetera. And we just went through putting together a whole new board of really super experienced directors that we're super lucky to have. And the thing that we always spoke most about isn't really, you can see the numbers and, obviously it's going to become a lot more open for us soon, but the culture is the part that you can't put on paper, and the kind of, the buzzing of the company. So there's no doubt that has been the hardest challenge and the most exciting, proudest moment that we've managed to achieve.
Yeah. Look, you've created, 109 jobs as well in a time where the economy's really needed them as well. So, I think there's a lot there that you should, and I'm sure you are proud of. Fantastic story, Ivan. It's been really great to have you on the show. And look, we wish you and everybody at OpenMarkets all the best in the finals. I mean, you've mentioned it yourself. I mean, you are in such great company. The finals, the competition just gets tougher every year. So it's an amazing achievement for you to have got here. And look, a fantastic reflection of all the great work that you and the team have done over this last 12 months.
Thanks, Dexter. It's very kind of you to say, and yeah, totally agree. There's some serious heavyweights in some of those categories. So
there is, yeah. Congrats.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.
Thank you to MasterCard for sponsoring and presenting the award for Emerging FinTech Organisation of the Year at this year's Finnies. We look forward to seeing everyone on the 9th of June in Melbourne, and don't forget to make your vote in the People's Choice Awards.